Hello, my energy exploring friends. How's your chi? Clara Apollo here on a bit of a late night call from the UK over to Japan because I've got Tracey Ash on the line waiting to come in. Tracey Ash being a spiritual revolutionary and all-round activist for truth and getting you to align with who you really are and bring through that which wants to birth it on the planet. So we're diving in deep to see what's going on next for humanity, really, isn't it? So let's get Tracey on the line because she tells it a lot better than I do. And welcome you back to time, darling. Hello.
Hi. It's all going good. Thank you.
So you're over in Japan at the moment?
We are, launching Ancient Intelligence Mystery School. So we've got this crossover in terms of the international school and then laying down new frontier training here.
So can you explain a little bit to listeners and viewers what the new frontier training means?
Well, we've taken what is around 8 decades of childhood experience, training, mystery school trainings and research, powering that from 20 years of my direct industry experience, really feeling what is appropriate for the times rather than attaching importance to mechanical training strategies, data that cannot be applied as wisdom. So we are ramping up the metaphysics and the metaphysical trainings, quantum trainings that are a feature of what is the new frontier. And that takes us into, of course, anchoring the 0 point technologies, the new consciousness technologies, the gateways, the time phases, the interdimensional alchemy, which again is important as we raise the frequency of the planet and create the alchemy in terms of our own healing agendas and dreams. So it's an astonishing time, of course, but the technologies we work with must be immaculate. That is super important. I mean, for me as a teacher who has been working in high profile for a couple of decades, I mean, the calling as industry leaders to provide the service that we describe is essential during these times. Because, of course, we're not just training in terms of a more self-indulgent self-exploration. We're actually training to survive in a world that is contaminated with manipulation, fear, political agendas, health agendas, 5G. And when we work into the consciousness technologies and the training, we're working from the inside out to empower us and to prep us for survival. Because of course, the hijack is huge and it's one of your passions in terms of the environment too. And those of us who are awake and who care are standing, questioning what we need to do in terms of our consciousness so our awareness can operate with greater clarity, and also our resource can work with a greater capacity to respond to the crises on the planet. And that means our work cannot be any longer self-indulgent or low impact. So we become powerful catalysts and influencers in our communities. So we speak the truth and we're clear about our consciousness, who we are, and the reality of who we are on a day-to-day basis. Metaphysics, the drive coming in through metaphysics is an incredibly important one. And for me, in terms of truth and authenticity, our mentors must be not well researched, but well trained and initiated. So they carry the codes, the transmissions, what I consider as metaphysical teachings, and it's the metaphysics that impact us, and it's the metaphysics that open and regenerate gateways that have been previously closed by the false matrix agenda. So we have low density issues that must be corrected. We have hijacks in terms of our reality, our consciousness. We have the profound wound that is put into place in terms of our exchanges on a day-to-day basis. And of course, training to survive and to empower is my priority as an influencer. So there is a new revolution that's emerging in our arena, and I am in touch with the front end of this in terms of responding to what the audience, what humanity is requesting. And the common feedback here is the technologies that were previously regarded as workable or thinkable are now entering a phase of redundancy, and everyone is questioning what is next, because it's energy that we need to ignite so that we're prepared from the inside out, and we're prepared in a way that allows us to stand in our power regardless. And of course, that cannot be theoretically centered. It has to be initiated. And
it has to be practical as well. I mean, what does this mean for your everyday meditator or spiritual activist? What does this mean to actually be impeccable and aligned and be in true service to humanity?
Well, our own healing processes, when those healing processes are indeed immaculate and initiated correctly, we enter into the awakening processes, which means our awareness and our alignment and our frequency are all activated simultaneously. And that means we are then able to stand in the timelines and in reality, and stand in all the stories, and then respond or not respond, however intelligently. And that's hugely important. So we are no longer false matrix hijacked and manipulated. And again, it's about discovering the ways to reweave any blind spots that we have. And that also means we have to step into the self-clarity and the humility that, of course, research and reading cannot fill in those blind spots. So the elitism and ego of attaching oneself to a greater intelligence that, of course, must be initiated is a huge faux pas in our spiritual arena. So this is something I've considered very carefully over four decades, in order to genuinely manifest gateways of evolution, initiation, spirituality, metaphysics, conscious intelligence, then we must listen to ourselves very carefully and be extremely shrewd in terms of the information sources, resources that we uphold as the most credible. So even in our arena, disclosure needs to happen within the context of quality information and strategies, and then also to disclose and reveal and admit the strategies that are simply not designed to work in this current phase of evolution, because the intensity of humanity's crisis, Earth's crisis, is huge. It's far outweighing what we can keep up with in terms of superficial practices. So that is the benchmark to the new arena.
So
and it's huge.
So what you're saying is that it's all changing, that the meditations that we were doing like 20 years ago are no longer cutting the mustard. They might have served as groundwork of you doing your personal practice and getting used to your internal way of working with yourself. But now it's ramping up. It's like every time you go into meditation, you need to let it evolve. You know, it's not the same every time, is it? It's an evolutionary process inside of you to acknowledge and to trust and to let that guide you.
Yes, and the mechanical processes which create the same end result repeatedly are again hugely superficial, so that does not impact the parts of self that actually require your attention and your immaculate attention for evolution and transformation. So the work that we do must be unique to our life path and our life lessons. And of course, we require mentors who are engineered to take us into the unique rather than the generic and the mechanical. I don't see many mentors, leaders in the field who have that quantum capability.
The quantum capability. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's being able to work from or play from this multi-dimensional weave of being. And I'd like to talk to you more about that. But first of all, I'd like you to introduce us to the track that you've chosen here on Chi Time today and why you've chosen that, please, Tracey.
Okay, I chose it because my daughter is about to launch her career as a musician and songwriter, and she is hugely influenced to generate conscious message in her music. So Tiny Dancer, and you also kindly move that towards Florence and the Machine, so she'll be absolutely thrilled. So it's for Scarlett.
So that was Tiny Dancer by Florence and the Machine for Scarlett, your dear, beautiful young daughter, who's she's so talented, and so lucky to have you as her mum. Wow. Whew. So Tracey and I have known each other for a little while, and it's always takes me on a lovely journey when I hang out with you, Tracey. Thank you. And I remember us being at Avebury once. I think it might have been a solstice or an equinox. I can't quite remember, but I do recall that through the meditations that we were doing, that it was inspiring me to do some qigong moves, particularly the one of bringing the light down through from heaven down through the body into earth. And when you work as well, there is a movement that comes through you that it is the body needs to get involved with this spirituality that we're doing now. It's not just all happening in the head. Yeah, there's an embodiment piece that's really key.
I completely agree. The alignment that is present on all dimensions, and more dimensions means that we can embody our intelligence and our presence in the world, and we can then positively and consciously impact the world that we exist in. And that means that we can then show up as change makers. It's quite interesting with alignment. There are then frequency codes that are available to us that were not available before. So we align our thoughts, our feelings with the frequency of the words we consciously select. That also allows us a deep listening process, a deep awareness process. So we're aware of our communication and how that impacts reality. It's taking us into the quantum subtleties of our presence, our multidimensional presence as a new model human being, a new frontier human being. So this is important work, for example, in terms of inspiring and supporting the new generations, new frontier individuals, the tribe, mobilizing others who have at the heart of their concerns the future humanity and earth. So we're entering a very interesting and a more experimental phase in terms of our consciousness and how an alignment means we can stand in a gateway of multi-timelines, and that allows us to outmaneuver the density of the 3D timeline that so many of us are locked into. And in terms of that, we become capable of sliding the timelines, which also means we're sliding into and connecting with new frequencies, new realities as a resource. So our education becomes very different. But first of all, we must enter our bodies. And of course, we need mentors who can hold sacred space. And that sacred space becomes the technology to assist us in weaving our internal reality, allowing the alignment, the centeredness that comes when we ease or are eased in terms of our trauma, which is the duality game that we are constantly hampered with in terms of our evolution. So regardless of whether we've done a lot of work on self or not, the duality game is one that we're constantly tampered with and in as a consequence of existing in the 3D timeline. So again, our practices and our mentorship must be immaculate. Holding the sacred space, the quantum space, is hugely relevant. So we find this in ancient practices, of course. So you with your practice, me with my lineage of mystery schools, my insights and teachings that are connected with earth alchemy, earth wisdom, stargates, ancient gateways, and of course, Earth becomes the immaculate technology in terms of supporting us, in terms of the timelines and evolving our consciousness and maneuvering the manipulation of the 3D timeline, the false matrix. So this has been carefully thought through. I believe I'm one individual who is tackling this subject, the how to, in a completely unique way, but also then bringing this together, merging this together with evidence. So when we go beyond, we have, for example, sacred contact, we have legitimate evidence, for example, of mediumship. I mean, I've always been immaculate in how I consider training to be and the standards of my own work. I outgrew all of my teachers and set my own bar in terms of excellence. So that's took me to working with the Emoto Foundation. It's took me to working with PSI Science Institute Japan, which of course Emoto was on the board of. I've just been requested by Dr. Stephen Greer to submit my contact footage, which is being highly regarded as the best footage in the world in terms of contact and disclosure. I'm constantly being requested to research. So there's another researcher in the UK who wants to team up because, of course, this is all to be proven if we have genuine gifts present and genuine training present. So it's a hugely impressive time.
It is. It absolutely is. And it's crucial. There's an urgency to this now.
Yes.
And that's why this call to stepping up, there's no more sitting about reading your books on spirituality, and it's putting it into action.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, so many of the teachers are redundant. Those who have been high profile, you can see it's in their field. There's an old paradigm frequency present that is no longer showing the way. And again, it's all based in our evolution and being responsive to our attachments and spiritually registering that evolution is not based in attaching ourselves to technologies that do not work, but to be brave enough to break free. And because I serve especially the younger generations, I mean, the resources to break free are newly manifesting and newly emerging. So the reference points are few in terms of authentic voices, authentic mentors, authentic technologies. So it's a critical time for our movement and our arena, that the work is definitively laid down in keeping with what is happening with evolution in other dimensions of our lives. So we can't sit in old modalities, strategies, technologies and manipulate ourselves to believe that it will take us into the freedom that we request. Of course not, because of the current crises that is emerging in the 3D timeline. And in terms of our ascension, the gateways are present. However, there are multiple triggers that are designed to hijack your freedom. And so we need to be trained as warriors. Peaceful warriors, spiritual warriors, so we can lead what comes next. And it's metaphysics that revolutionize our reality, of course, so that we can weave the dimensions that have been distorted and hijacked and isolated, because those dimensions are, of course, resources, so that we can create realities that take us beyond three-dimensional and a manipulated existence here on the planet. So it's huge stuff.
It is huge stuff. Tracey Ash is here with us on Chi Time, telling it like it is from the cutting edge of spiritual revolution. And I thank you so much for all that you're doing on behalf of humanity.
Thank you. Thank you.
And when it comes to issues, you mentioned right at the beginning of the interview about 5G. I know it's something that people listening and watching, viewers, might also have on their radar. Is like, how do we manage this, what appears to be an inevitable rollout and barrage of our energy system with technologies that haven't been tried and tested?
I absolutely agree. I think it's a huge concern. First and foremost, remember that our genius technology is the earth to reset us, to ignite consciousness within ourselves that is unprecedented. So if we look to frequency, then transforming our frequency will empower us to survive. And again, we are looking to ignite the most important miracles and new gateways of life force and consciousness, so we can maintain very sharp awareness to take care of ourselves and to follow correct protocol and gateways in terms of our own health. So we utilize consciousness training, we utilize gateways, power sites for the reset. We look to food, we look to healing ourselves on multiple dimensions, and we look at eliminating toxins at every dimension. So we must keep ourselves high frequency in order to weather this storm, which is an assault on our sovereignty. You know, what we're looking at doing, and I think this is really exciting. I've just been invited to be part of a high council of what comes next. And so that would create a body of knowledge, training, high frequency technologies, which work in sync with artificial intelligence. So we must befriend technology also and see the value in it in terms of resetting our frequency, our fields. You know, I have business partners here who work with microbiotics and were pioneers in the 70s. And in terms of their restaurants, they have 0 point machines, which again create the grid in terms of the environment. So there are multiple avenues we can take in order to prepare ourselves to survive. And I think especially in terms of Japan, where there is the issue of Fukushima, and there's been a history of huge assaults on humanity. we have been built to survive, and we have a sovereign right to exist on the planet. In low frequency, it is of course a challenge, but in high frequency, we see ourselves through despite the assault. So again, magic and miracles and our practices then open the gateways of solutions that are not conventional. And that is the great beauty of immaculate work, because of course anything that is conventionally spiritual is not magical enough to take us into surviving and evolving beyond the false matrix. So the magic, the quantum, the metaphysics is what prepares us and empowers us and evolves us beyond anything that is considered as a limitation. Yeah, so I believe I came into this arena because I believed in magic and miracles. Most people only dream of magic and miracles, but my vision and my purpose, mission as regards to my work was always to manifest, which is exactly what my mission is on the planet.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is, because I outgrew my teachers, many teachers would comment upon me that I could not work in that way. And of course, that would have been hugely detrimental to the revolution that is now. So we must consider all possibilities rather than some.
Yes, all possibilities.
Yes.
Tracey, thank you so much for sharing with us your wisdom at this moment in time, which we're recording just before the super full moon on the 20th of March, which is also the vernal equinox in the UK, in the Western Hemisphere. And it feels like really auspicious times, like the major shift is going to occur then. Are you feeling that?
I do, and I've already prepared for that. I have a training program that is a 1-year training program that is aligned with each full moon. And that's hugely important in terms of the way we consider our wound and prepare ourselves for, again, immaculate transformation that goes deep enough so that we can indeed release our dreams of change. So the alignments, the gateways, the astrological phases, etc., these are all important features of the times that we live in. But we must be assisted, not just by the knowledge, but by the gatekeepers who can see us through.
Wow, well, again, wow, you've blown my mind again. Thank you. I love it. And if you would like to find out more about Tracey Ash, you can go to her website, tracyash.com. That's Tracey, EY at the end. And look out for her on Facebook and Instagram. It's all over, sharing whatever you can. I mean, it's just spread around the world. And you travel around the world too. So you are a global spiritual revolutionary. So nice work, Tracey.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we completely close the show? I feel like there's something else just for listeners.
Be immensely discerning in terms of what and who you believe in.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
See you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.